So, welcome everyone. Yes, perfect. I'm so excited that everyone is here. Oh, yeah, and I want everyone to refresh the page, but if you can see me, then you've already refreshed the page. So in that case, you're here and you're ready to join us. So we are going to just chat for a minute. We want to make sure that people have the chance to join us. We want to give, and I actually also want Sabrina to come in. And I think, Sabrina, are you here?
Yes, I will unmute myself. Hello, everyone. I'm so happy that you're all here, and I'm so happy to be here as well. So, thank you so much for coming to our masterclass on grammar secrets. We're really happy to share these secrets with you.
Yeah, awesome. Well, the first thing I want to do is now that we're here, now that everything is up and running, I want everyone to type in the chat box where they are listening from today. So I'm in the United States. Sabrina is in Mexico. So take a second and log in or go to the chat box that's right below the video, right below, and type in where you're from. And actually, what I noticed is that we're going to give this just about another 10 or 15 seconds for people to do that. Because one thing I noticed that I was not aware of is that I think there's a little bit of a delay between when I'm speaking in this moment and when it starts to come up on the chat and starts to actually be visible. Natalia's here. Hi, Natalia. All right, I'm so glad that you could join us for our class. Good. It's always great when I can see a student in here. Okay, so we'll just give another minute for anyone else to type into the chat box where you're listening from, and then we'll go ahead and we'll get started and we'll continue. Okay, all right. So we'll go ahead and get started. And in order for me to do that, what I'm going to do is I am going to share my screen. So I'm going to do that now. Okay. So Sabrina, do you see my screen?
Yes, I can see your screen. I can see all the slides. So, you might want to put it in presenting mode.
Okay, there we go. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah.
Okay, great. All right, so today we're going to be talking about grammar secrets, and it's such an interesting topic because you can find lots of advice everywhere on the internet about how to improve your grammar, but we really thought it would be good to focus on some things that oftentimes you get taught in school that aren't really accurate, and how we can share with you some, it is kind of like a secret knowledge to help you improve your grammar. So we've already asked, where are you listening from today? So we're going to go to the next one and talk about why you're here. Okay, so why are you here? You are here today because you need better grammar. Okay, so to just do your job in English so that you can stop worrying about the English. So many of my students, and Sabrina, you can feel free to come in here and share your thoughts on this also if you'd like, but just as an English teacher, over and over again, my students tell me that they are so worried about their English, it stops them from communicating effectively at work. We want you to be able to communicate well enough that you don't even have to worry about the English part, that you can just be free to do your job, okay? We also want you to use the words you already know with more confidence and in the right way. Okay, so the other thing that's going to really help you and what we're going to talk about today is how to use the words and the grammar that you already know to be more confident and to be able to communicate in a more professional way. So, just in case you don't know us, I'm Chris Rush. And my website is betterbusinessenglish.co. I'm an American, I'm in the United States, and I've been teaching business English completely online since 2012. And I want to invite Sabrina, since she hasn't had too much of a chance to say hello yet, to come on now and introduce herself.
Okay, so I'm Sabrina and I'm from California, but I live in Mexico now. I've lived in a few different places all over the world, and I've taught students in lots of different countries, and I've started to specialize in intermediate speakers, really helping people get to the advanced level of speaking. So that's what today's class is all about. Because once you're an intermediate or advanced speaker, the way you need to study changes a little bit. So that's what we're going to talk to you about today.
Okay, awesome, Sabrina. And in fact, I kind of got things started. So I thought maybe this would be a great place for you to sort of take it from here and do a little more of the introduction before we get into the actual mistakes and things.
All right, so I'm going to share my screen as well. Hold on one second. So I'd like to ask everyone in the chat, why do you need better grammar? So we've been talking about that it's really important for work, for your life, for travels, maybe because you need to go to international conferences. So why don't you let us know in the chat why you need better grammar? And I'll give that a few seconds. And Chris will be in the chat as I'm presenting, so he can answer any questions for you as you're typing and as I'm doing this part of the class. So maybe you want to feel more like these two men who are, it looks like they're in a business meeting and they're just able to communicate easily. So having the right grammar and knowing that you have the right grammar will make you feel this way. You'll feel more confident. And that's what we want to help you with. So let's talk about what you'll learn today. We are going to talk about 5 mistakes or 5 misconceptions. So it's kind of like wrong thinking about learning grammar. And these are things that we've learned from school, because when you start learning grammar, when you start learning a new language, it's different. You have to learn the rules, you focus on the rules, you do more exercises. But now you're at a certain level where it's time to move past that. So we're also going to share 3 big secrets about how you can learn grammar for use in real life. So how you can use this in your real life, in your real job, how you can use real grammar that will really help you. So let's talk about the mistakes here. And before we do this, Chris, I'm hearing a little bit from your side, so maybe if you could mute your side.
Of course.
You can do that. Okay, so mistakes. And I don't want to be mean to English teachers because I've made these mistakes too. So as a classroom teacher, I've made these mistakes. And if you're making any of these mistakes, I want you to please remember, it's not your fault, okay? It's not your fault that you're making these mistakes. You're making these mistakes because this is the way that we were taught. This is the way that we were taught to learn languages. It's like classroom learning. But as you all know, since you're intermediate speakers, advanced speakers, you probably already use English sometimes or maybe all of the time at your job. You know that it's different. It's not like being in a classroom. You have to think really fast. And this is happening because good test scores, not fluency, are the goal in most high school and college classes. So when you're in a classroom, the teacher, she or he is, they're really doing their job. They're trying to help you. Hold on one second. Oh, you can't see my slides. Hold on one second. Let me see if everyone can see my slides now. Hold on one second. Okay, so let me share my screen again. I thought I was doing that. I guess I was not. Okay, so I should be sharing my screen now. You should be able to see Chris. And now we're going to go back to the slides. So let's see. Chris, are you able to see this now? Yeah, that looks fine. Okay, and it looks like I even have questions up here, but that's fine.
Yeah, it's great. It's perfect.
Okay, so what's happening in the classroom is that the teacher, she's trying to help you get good test scores, but it's not really fluency that she's working on helping you to achieve. And we all know that that's so important in the work environment. So let's go on to the mistakes now. Mistake number one. So this is like the mistaken way. I don't really know how to explain it. The mistaken way that your teacher taught you. So she taught you to focus on grammar rules. Okay. And not to be mean to the teacher because she was helping you with tests, right? So the grammar rules, it's because of tests, right? She was really trying to help you do well on the test. Okay, we have another mistake. Mistake number two. There was no time or place for mistakes. And in the same way, she was doing this because she really wanted you to do well on the tests, you know? And she also may have been doing this because in the classroom setting, there are so many students, so many. I mean, if you just look at this picture, there are 100, 200, maybe more students in one classroom. And even if you went to a school where you had maybe 20 students in a classroom, that's still a lot of students. So the teacher is working really hard to have you say the exact correct sentence that she's trying to help you with, and for the test too. Mistake number three is only using a textbook. So this isn't actually a mistake when we're first starting to learn a language. When we're first starting, it's really good to have a guide to see what's happening, to have a path to follow in your class. So it's good to use a textbook. But at a certain point, when you just need to be able to speak confidently and present at work and explain your ideas in a meeting, having only used a textbook is going to make things really hard. And again, we only use textbooks because of tests, right? So trying to help you with the test, but it's not going to help you so much in real life. Mistake number four. Mistake number four. is not spending time on speaking practice. And again, this could be because of the tests, right? Most tests are written tests. Or maybe, again, because there are so many students in the classroom. Another thing that happens with classroom learning is that if you have all the students talking like this, the classroom starts to look like this, and it doesn't look as organized. But you know that when you're at a function, a social function, it gets really loud. There are lots of people talking to each other and they're all talking at the same time. It's not really organized. That's just how language works. So we have the last mistake here. Mistake number 5 is not using real English dialogues or audio. So this is related to the textbook mistake. You may think that, oh, I'll just use the textbook, I'll just use the audio that goes with the textbook. But this isn't going to help you when you go out into the real world. So we'll talk about this later in one of the secrets, how you can start to use real English dialogues. Again, because of tests, right? So all of these mistakes are because, well, they're not really mistakes. They're like early learning, the way we start learning so that you can do well on tests. But you all know now that the real test is whether you're able to make the sale, whether you're able to talk to your boss, or whether you're able to explain your idea in a meeting. So I'm going to go a little bit faster here. I already said this. When I was a classroom teacher, I made these mistakes too. So I'm guilty. So it's okay if you're guilty of making these mistakes too, because this is the way that we were taught. All right. Here are the 5 mistakes again. And you can start writing in the chat if you've made any of these mistakes or if your teacher taught you to learn in this way. So you can say, yes, oh yes, I learned that way, or that's definitely my mistake. So go ahead and type in the chat as I'm listing these mistakes off again. So the first mistake, being too focused on grammar rules, too focused on the textbook, right? Not allowing for any mistakes. Number 3, only using the textbook again, because it could help you do well on the test. But now we know that real life English, that's the real test. Number 4 is not spending any time on speaking practice. Maybe there just wasn't time in your classroom. And number 5 is not using real English dialogues. Maybe you don't know where to find them. So if any of you have been writing in the chat, which of these mistakes did you learn from your teachers in school? I'm going to stop sharing my screen here. So which of these mistakes are you guilty of, or any of your teachers? Okay. Screen share. Hold on a second. There I am, guys. Okay. Yeah, so thinking about number 1. Oh, Chris, even as a teacher. Okay. And Eugene says he's guilty 100%. That's great. Yeah, couldn't agree more with number 5. Not using real English audio on speaking. Yeah, great. Yeah, thanks for all your comments, guys. So now I'm going to hand it over to Chris so that he can share secret number 1 with all of you.
Okay. All right. So what we're going to do now is Sabrina has done a really great job of setting up these really common mistakes that teachers make, these really common mistakes that students make when they're trying to learn a language. And so what we're going to do now is we're going to share 3 secrets, and we keep calling them secrets, and you'll understand when we talk about it, but I do think it's important to say, why is this a secret? Why are we calling it secrets? Because when we tell you these secrets, it's not the same advice you see on every English website that you go to. Okay, these are things that you have to really think about, and you're like, wait a minute, is that right? Can that possibly be true? So these are really powerful bits of information, and I'm going to share the first one. Okay, so grammar secret number 1, and I am going to share my screen, and I want to make sure that it comes in. So I'm just going to double check with Sabrina to make sure that grammar secret number 1 is nice and big there.
Yes,
Okay.
it's there. It's there.
Okay, awesome. So grammar secret number 1, don't worry about grammar rules. Okay, now this is not something an English teacher usually says. Don't worry about grammar rules. What? What do you mean? We're here in a masterclass to learn about grammar. And the teacher says, don't worry about grammar rules. What does this mean? And how can I do this? Let me explain. Now, as an English teacher, there's one thing that students want more than anything else. I've spoken to hundreds of students, and there's one thing I hear when I say, what's your goal in English? Okay, for those of you who are watching, when we did our first, that are my students or that have had a trial lesson with me, you may remember I said, what do you want? What is your goal in English? And the most common thing that I hear is this: confidence. More than anything, students want confidence in communication. Okay, so what is the problem here? The problem is that students get intimidated and afraid because they don't know enough grammar. And I don't know if you ever feel like the kid in this image when you are in a situation when you have to speak English in front of other people, especially in front of other native speakers. It all comes down to fear. In fact, there are so many of my students whose grammar is good, but it's not at the level that they want. And so they're afraid. And so their communication ability doesn't improve. So don't worry about the rules. Just talk, just communicate. Most of the time people will understand what you're trying to say. So don't let this fear stop you. And how can you not let the fear stop you? By not worrying about the rules. So what do you focus on? If you're not going to focus on the rules, you focus on context, not rules. Let me talk about what that means. All right, so now I'm going to show you a common plan. Those words are a little small on the top of the screen there, but this is a common plan for how students learn grammar in English. Step 1, you learn a grammar tense. You go over the rules, talk about ways that you use it. Step 2, you do practice exercises on that tense. Your teacher has you do some gap fills or answer questions. You do a few of those and you start to gain some confidence. So step 3 is that you feel good. And then you move to a new grammar tense. And then step 4, you forget everything 2 weeks later. So what's the point of all this in saying make it about context? You've got to practice. You've got to practice until your gut or your stomach. We use that in English, and there is the same equivalent in many languages. It's like you're feeling It's not like, oh, my brain says that this is right. It's not a brain thought or feeling. It's just this sense that, oh, I think this is correct. So you've got to practice and get that sense so sharp and so good that that's what you're answering questions with, not your brain, not where you say, okay, this is present perfect. Present perfect starts in the past. It's still true now. And so therefore you say, okay, I have worked here for 5 years. That's too slow. You've got to practice it over and over and over again until you just know, until you know it in your stomach or in your soul or in your heart or however way makes sense to you. So you don't learn grammar by studying the rules. You learn grammar by using it, by implementing it, by practicing it. Sure, do you have to spend a little bit of time learning the rules? Yes, but most students spend way more time learning the rules than they do practicing. And if you do that, then you're going to be like the little kid hiding under the couch when it's his turn to speak. Because when you're in a meeting at work, they're not going to ask you to fill in the blanks. They're not going to ask you one for one sentence answers using a specific grammar tense. You're going to have to speak on something important, and you're going to have to use that grammar in it. Okay, that's grammar secret number 1. And for grammar secret number 2, we're going to turn things back over to Sabrina. Sabrina, you're still muted.
Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, I
You're good.
said it can be so hard to practice that way, though, Chris. Like, I know that when I'm learning a language, I feel so embarrassed, especially in these really important meetings or a work context in another language. But you just have to do it. You have to do it over and over and over again and just work really hard at it. So I am going to share my screen so that I can share grammar secret number 2 with you guys. Here we go. Sharing my screen. Okay. Let's take a look at grammar secret number 2. Grammar secret number 2. We're going to stop using the textbook audio or video, whatever comes with the textbook, because you've already done it. You've already done that work. You've already done the basics. You've gone through the beginners courses. If you're here listening to me and understanding even 60%, 70%, maybe 95%, some of you might be more advanced. Even if you can only understand 60%, you're still watching this in English. So it's time to listen even more to more things in English. Okay, and why? So why do we not want to use the textbook before I get to the resources? The textbook audio is usually pretty weird and really slow. It doesn't sound anything like when you go to that real international meeting with people from Germany, people from Canada, people from Russia, and everyone's speaking to each other in English. They're going to be talking pretty fast, and they're not going to be speaking slowly and only using the present tense. It's going to be a mix of everything. So we want to get that real mix of real language into our studies. So you can do all of these things on your own. You can use all of these resources on your own. You might have this question, how can I get started if listening to native English speakers is hard for me? Okay, so how can you get started if it's difficult? So I'm going to share some tips with you on how you can get started. Here are my recommended resources. And I put here intermediate speakers. So you can challenge yourself a little bit more if you're more advanced with some of these tips. And I'll tell you how you can do that. But for intermediate speakers, or even if you are advanced and you want to start using real English materials, it might be difficult. So here's what you can start with. So my recommended resources are short podcasts. So just 5 or 10 minutes. Because when you're listening for that long in another language, you're gonna get tired. It's going to be tiring for you. So, and if you choose something that's just 5 minutes long, you can listen to it again and again and again. You could listen to it 4 times in just 20 minutes. And that's a lot of really good practicing with a podcast. I have some resources of podcasts that I recommend that I will type in the chat when I'm done with this section. So I want to share those resources with you in a minute when I'm done showing you all of the recommended resources. You can also use social media. So video it's so popular right now on social media. So you can follow people who speak English, or you can follow pages or companies, and you can watch they're usually very short videos that they put out on social media. So on Facebook, most videos that I see are just about a minute long, maybe a minute and a half. And I think that that's a pretty good length to start with if you want to listen to real English materials. Even if it's an advertisement, it's still real English. Okay, another thing you can use is a TV show that you've already seen with subtitles in your native language. So there are a couple ways you could do this. You can watch the TV show first with subtitles in your native language, or maybe you can watch it with English subtitles, and then do what little kids do. Watch the same episode over and over and over again, because it's really hard to listen to native speakers. And that's why little kids do this, because they know intuitively, they know, like what Chris said, with their gut, they know with their soul, with their heart, that they need to listen to it again and again so that they can understand more and more each time. You can also use News for English learners. A website that I really like is newsinlevels.com, and I'll put that in the chat when I'm done presenting all of these resources as well. Because you can read the news with easy tenses, and then they have a more difficult level, and then they have the native level where you can see and listen to the video. So it's a real news clip, but you've already prepared, you've already learned some of the difficult words, some of the grammar that you're going to hear in the video. You've already reviewed that before you watch it, so you'll understand even more. And it's a way to listen to real English news. Oh, an extra one I have here. A non-audio resource is blogs. I always recommend blogs to my students because blogs these days are written very casually. It's almost like the person is sitting there in the room with you and talking directly to you. I even see some blogs use curse words. Most blogs use very, very casual English. So you could read the blog out loud and you could get a sense for what spoken English sounds like. All right, so here's what you're going to do with these resources. like I said about the TV show and kids watching the same TV show or the same movie. I know because my daughter is 3 years old. She watches some movies like 200 times. You don't have to watch it listen or watch that many times, but 4 or 5 or 10 would be good for you. So listen many, many, many times to the same thing. You can transcribe what you hear because the grammar sounds and the way that we blend words together is very different than what you heard in your textbook audio. So when you're listening to real English, you could write down exactly what you hear. And that's the way that people actually say it. Then you can read your notes out loud. So now we're getting into the speaking practice, okay? It's really important for you to speak as much as possible when you're studying on your own. You can just find a time when you can shut your door so that no one thinks you're crazy talking to yourself. But that's what it takes to learn a language. I know that I've been that crazy girl on the street speaking in another language to myself just to practice when I had a chance. But yeah, that's what it takes. So after you practice on your own, after you listen, transcribe, study with the listening materials how you like to study, then tell someone. Tell someone about what you learned. Tell someone about what you heard. You could tell your coworker, your boss, your language partner. And it's important to tell someone because you have to practice talking about what you've learned so that then when you go into that important meeting again, when you go to that important conference, you can use it more easily. It'll already be, I want to say, it'll already be really stuck in your brain. It'll already be part of your memory. Yep, so you want to end up in a situation like this, where you've done the work on your own so that you can go and use the grammar in real life in those really important meetings. And now we're going to go on to grammar secret number 3. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen here. Okay, and now I'm going to hand it over to Chris.
All right. Great, fantastic. I really like the part about watching the same movie or episode of TV over and over and over again. I still like to do that sometimes, even in English. But it seems
Yeah, great.
it seems silly, but it's not silly. It's like totally helpful, and I think that highlights what we're talking about. These are things that are helpful that you're not going to see in every blog or every English podcast there is. So let's get into secret number 3. So secret number 3. I'm going to ignore that. Okay. Can you see my screen? Sabrina, can you see it?
Yeah, it's a little frozen. Let's see. I'm going to mute myself and I'll just give you a thumbs up when I can see it.
Okay, but I can't see you, so that's okay. I'm just gonna roll on because on my screen it says Grammar Secret 3, and we're gonna go. Okay, so just like the first secret I talked about, which was don't worry about grammar rules, Grammar Secret 3 is along the same lines. Use less grammar, not more. And again, what do you mean less grammar? We're here today to learn about grammar. And okay, I guess I'm having a little issue. Check. You hear me? Okay, so you hear me. Let's try to share my. Okay, let's try.
You might have to click it a couple times. I think they've changed the way that you share your screen.
Okay. So Sabrina, tell me when you see the vortex. Yeah, okay, good. So now I'm on this secret which says use less grammar, not more. So I'm hoping that that's good. Okay, sweet. So less grammar. We're on a grammar masterclass, and I'm telling you use less grammar. Why? Why would that possibly be useful? Okay, and this is like a little joke here that says, what? You mean I don't need to know the past pluperfect conditional, which is quite possibly, it is in fact not a real tense. So no, you don't. You don't have to make it your goal to learn every tense. You don't even have to make it your goal to learn more grammar tenses. We're going to talk about that in a minute. But for right now, it is idiom time. So I'm going to put an idiom on the screen, and this idiom describes a person, and you tell me if you know what it means. So the idiom is know-it-all. So if you know what the idiom know-it-all means, put it in the chat box. What's a know-it-all? I heard somebody's pop go that they had written something in there. So, and I know that there's a delay of about 10 seconds from when I speak to when you hear it. So I want to give everyone, a good 20 or 30 seconds to think about it, to type it if you know it. What's a know-it-all? And I'm actually just gonna flash right back over it and take a look myself. Oh, that's Sabrina talking about podcasts and resources. Okay, Smarty Pants. Good job, Lau. Good job. It is a Smarty Pants. Someone who shows off. That's exactly it, Lau. So well done, well done. So a know-it-all is a person that thinks, I want to keep looking back, a know-it-all is a person that thinks they know everything, okay? And I'm going to show a picture of a know-it-all. This is a know-it-all, and this know-it-all says blah, blah, blah. Yes, I know everything. I'm going to tell you about everything, and I am so smart, and I'm just going to tell you everything that you need to know. And this know-it-all is wearing a shirt that says type A. I'm going to explain that also. So in English, we talk about if someone is a type A personality. A type A personality is a personality that is competitive, outgoing, ambitious, impatient, or aggressive. So a type A personality is going to be the kind of person who will be more of a know-it-all, okay? So why am I talking about being a know-it-all in the context of telling you to use less grammar and not more grammar? Well, I'm glad you asked. Here we're going to take a look at another common plan, just like we did with the first secret. So here is a common plan that many students follow. Step 1, learn lots of grammar. Step 2, show everyone how much grammar you know, like the smarty pants, like the type A, ambitious, outgoing, aggressive know-it-all. And step 3, get all of it wrong. This is why you don't want to learn too much grammar, because you try to learn too much grammar, you don't spend enough time practicing, you learn too many tenses with not enough time, and then you don't know any of it. And I know so many students who are in this exact situation. They say, I took English classes for 10 years. I learned this tense, and this tense, and this tense. And I say, can you use any of them? And they say, no, not at all. What picture is this? What do you call this person? This is an interesting image, and I'm going to connect it to the thing that I just talked about. Does anyone know what this image is? What do you call this person? He's wearing black. He has a sword. He has a little star that he's going to throw. He moves in the night. We're going to give everyone 10 or 15 seconds to determine what this person is. If you know what his name is, just put it in the chat. I'll wait till I hear a pop. Ninja. This is a ninja. Why do I have a picture of a ninja when I'm talking about using less grammar, not more grammar, and not being a know-it-all? The reason is because instead of learning so many tenses, and I'm just going to very briefly stop sharing my screen for this. Get myself back on the camera. So instead of spending all of this time learning all of these tenses that you're just going to forget, just learn a few tenses. And when you learn a tense, make sure you learn it like a ninja. So what does that mean, right? Learn it like a ninja. It means like a ninja is precise. A ninja doesn't make any mistakes. He has to sneak very carefully, and he sneaks up on people and he attacks. So when you learn grammar, don't worry about too many tenses. What's the one tense that you know? And can you use it without making mistakes? Okay, just what's the second? The first tense you learn in English class is the present simple. What's the second tense you learn? It's the past simple. Okay, and so often I'm teaching students, and this may be like you, who get really high grammar scores, and they know all these tenses, but then they want to tell me a story about what happened yesterday, and they don't use the past simple. They say, yesterday I go to the store. No, I went to the store. So stop all the other grammar you're doing. If you don't know the past simple, that's beginner level. You've got to make sure you can use the past simple like a ninja before you go to the present perfect. Okay? That's the point of this. Use less grammar, not more. You get so easily overwhelmed with all this grammar that exists. Don't worry about it. Can you tell me a story about what happened yesterday and correctly conjugate the past simple 100% of the time? If yes, then we can go to the next one, to the present perfect, etc. That is how you learn grammar, and that's how you know that when you're speaking, you're not making mistakes. And when you're speaking and not making mistakes and you know it, that is how you get confidence to speak. Okay, I'm going to climb down from my soapbox and go back to the next slide, which is here's our summary of secrets. Secret number 1, don't worry about grammar rules. Secret number 2, stop using the textbook audio. Secret number 3, use less grammar, not more. If you took these secrets and showed them to just a random teacher, they would say, well, that doesn't make any sense. That's why they're secrets. Because this is like the secret information that will help you take your grammar to the next level. Okay, before we do anything else, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'm going to invite Sabrina to come and chime in. Oh, we don't hear you, Sabrina.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Great. Yeah. So using less grammar, that's so interesting. You just have to know how to use the basic grammar, and then move on to more complicated things. You know, most conversations really are just with basic present and past. So that makes a lot of sense, Chris.
Awesome. So we've covered a lot of material, and we plan on usually going for an hour. Because we got a little bit of a late start, we're already past the hour point. So I want to be respectful of everyone's time. If you've got any questions or any comments or contributions, please put them in the chat. Now is going to be the chance to discuss anything that we've talked about, if you want to learn more about something that either I said or Sabrina said, now is going to kind of be the chance to get some personal attention from a couple of English teachers if you would like to learn more. So I'm going to give everyone a good 20 or 30 seconds to think it over, allow some time to pass for people to be putting things into the chat box. So otherwise, it's been super interesting, and I'm so thankful. I feel so much better. I felt so much better once we got the Hangout to broadcast. I was a little bit
Yeah.
nervous.
Yeah,
So
definitely. We didn't know if it was going to happen there for a minute, but here we are. And if you are still here and if you listen to our whole class, we're so happy. If you're just listening to the replay as well, welcome. Maybe on YouTube you're watching it, or on the other page that Chris will share. So any questions, you can put them in the chat box. I don't know. Chris, do you have any questions for me?
no, I don't have any questions for you. Do you have any questions for me?
Yeah, I think so. About the grammar rules, because I mean that really is a secret, because we want to learn the rules, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, but like why don't we want to learn the rules, or how does that work? Talk about that maybe for just a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. So you have to start with the rules. You have to start uh, with knowing the proper constructions for grammar. But here's the problem. When you learn the grammar rules, it's a very intense mental exercise. You're like, okay, the present perfect. Okay, so if I want to use the present perfect, it's the present tense of the verb to have plus the past participle of the main verb. And you go, okay, how does that work? And you have to do all this.
That's just, yeah, really confusing to think about all of those concepts.
But that's what you have to do. So, and every grammar tense is like that. So the problem is that once it's a very common mistake. Once we have it in our brain and we have it memorized and we can repeat it for like 5 minutes, then we say, I've got that. Let's go to the next one. And that's where we've got to say, whoa, slow down, because we want that. At that point, what becomes necessary is to practice it so much that until your brain stops even having to think about the rules. Because what happens? You come to class one week, we talk about, okay, present tense of have, past participle of the main verb. Okay, I have worked, I have gone, I have been. And then we practice, you feel good, you come to class next week, and what happens? You say, what is it again? I have. Now, that's the sign you're too focused on the rules. We want you to get to the place where you practice it enough. It's not coming from your head. It's coming from your gut. So that's the one aspect of it. And the other aspect of it is that even if you do make mistakes, don't let fear stop you from communicating. Two parts.
Okay, great. Well, I'm just reading some things that people have written here in the chat. Eugene says he remembers that ninjas work on their tricks by doing them again and again, right? So just like I said about the TV shows, you just watch them over and over and over again. And the same thing that Chris is talking about here. Just practice present tense over and over and over again. Practice past tense as much as you need to practice. Just write a whole story in past tense and just write the same story down every day until you really get it, until you really know it, until you've really learned it. And Natalia also says, thanks for the secrets. She wished she would have learned them 2 years ago. So hopefully you can still use them and you can still use some of this advice now.
Okay. American Ninja movie star. Oh, nice. Okay. So we, like Sabrina just put in the chat box, everyone who's here, you're going to get the replay. So you'll be able to watch this a second time. And then I noticed that someone just said that they were late. So don't worry. You're going to be able to watch the whole thing, the replay of it, and that replay will be available until the end of the weekend. So today's Wednesday, you'll be able to watch it until Sunday. And I think that's about it. Anything else? Any final thoughts, Sabrina?
Yeah, did I no, you can hear me, right? You can hear me.
Yes.
Yeah. Yep. Final thoughts. No, just thanks for coming. And we have another masterclass in the works from next month or maybe the month after that. So be checking your email so that you can come to our next event. And we'll also be sending you more study tips if you're new on our email list. Send them every couple weeks, some things to really help you get to that advanced level of speaking. So nice to see all you guys and hope to see you again soon.
Okay, everyone, thanks for coming. We'll see you next time. All right, bye.